This is Kardec Radio for Teens.
And now it's time for Message from a Teen in the Spirit World with your hosts, Mark Smith and Carol Coran.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Message from a Teen in the Spirit World. When we last left Carlos, we saw him sharing a beautiful message of hope with his brother Dirceu, telling him that though his body seemed lifeless, he never really died. How beautiful and hopeful is that? That is a message that we can all take to heart. And the fact that life never ends certainly is a gift of love from God towards all of us. But God's love is so infinite and so beautiful that it doesn't end there. In addition to allowing our spirits to graduate as our body withers away, God also provides us with loving support, with the help of our spiritual family, as well as our physical, material family. So in addition to having a loving mother, father, aunt, uncle, cousins, grandmother, grandfather, or whomever is connected to our hearts in this realm of life, we also have many loving ones or loved ones that share their hearts with us from the other side of life. And this is what Carlos, interestingly, reports to us in his second letter to his brother Dirceu. He reports to us the joy and the surprise, the cheer that he felt in his heart when he found that in crossing to the other side, he was never alone and never deprived of love. So let us hear Carlos's own account.
Chapter 2, Aunt Eunice. I was looking for an expression of peace and cheerfulness on your faces, but it was no use. I would have given you anything to see you smile. That would have eased my fear. But you all were dismayed, crying. I hoped Dr. Martino would try to cheer me up and assure me that it was all a passing crisis. But our good doctor took my pulse without trying to hide the sadness filling his soul. So the fear of dying grew stronger and stronger in my mind. When everything seemed beyond hope, something happened that grabbed my attention. A faint noise aroused my curiosity. I looked towards the doorway and saw that in some inexplicable way, delicate flakes of a phosphorescent substance had begun appearing there. Those points of light seemed to be forming a fine cloak of airy gauze, and it looked like someone was moving beneath it. I was watching this oddity in amazement when the light curtain split apart and a pretty young lady appeared. I recognized her right away. She was the same lady that was in the big painting that Mom kept in the house. It was Aunt Eunice, Mom's little sister, who had died when you and I were still small. She was wearing a light green dress, decorated with shining lace. A beautiful, radiant, bluish light surrounded her, especially her head and upper body, as if she were holding a hidden lamp. Her dark eyes radiated unlimited sympathy and kindness. I was greatly surprised as Aunt Eunice entered the room, gave Mom a hug without Mom seeing her, and then sat down beside me and said, "Well, little Carlos, you are so brave. Are you afraid now?" If it had been any other occasion, I think I wouldn't have behaved so well, because I had always heard that the dead are ghosts and our aunt was already dead. But I was so distressed that I felt greatly comforted by her words of encouragement. I needed someone to cheer me up. I noticed Dad's nervousness, Mom's tears, and Dr. Martino's discouragement and sadness as he sat beside me, and I concluded that Aunt Eunice's good mood was just what I needed. Actually, in the good old days when I had been well, I heard strange stories about hauntings from the other world, which had left such an impression on me that I couldn't sleep. But Aunt Eunice could inspire fear in anyone. She was beautiful and smiling, filling me with trust and optimism. So I felt alive again, although I noticed an unpleasant stiffness in my body, which I couldn't move, not even a bit.
Wow, how beautiful to hear the first-hand account of Carlos saying that as he is separated from his body, physical body, to live again as a full-blown discarnate spirit, that he, quote, felt alive again. How beautiful to know that the concept of death as portrayed by Hollywood sometimes or on magazines or books that we know doesn't really exist. How revolutionary is the revolution of love? It makes sense, right, Mark? Because God is infinite love. So why? Why, if we ask ourselves rationally, why would God, the supreme intelligence of all universe, the first cause of all things, according to the first question of the Spirit's book, why would the supreme intelligence of the universe destroy her own creation? Doesn't make sense. And of course, it doesn't add up logically. And Spiritism, through blessed mediumship as a form of charity, is here to bring us the promised consoler. Why do we call it the promised consoler? Because the great divide that have for many centuries separated this realm of life from the other one doesn't exist anymore. So when we say, oh, I'm too young to learn this, or I'm too old to do that, we know that that concept of time is real but not permanent, because sooner or later we will graduate from this life and will continue to progress in the same way that Carlos is progressing. And the other beautiful message of joy that goes against what the status quo or our culture tends to believe is that there are no such thing as ghosts. Carlos himself confesses having heard quote unquote hunted or hunting stories and having been afraid of ghosts. But spirits, like Carlos found, are people, just like you and I. The only difference between you and I and we and them is that we temporarily have a physical body and they don't. But sooner or later we will be in their position as well. So when we see a loving friend from the other side, we can embrace them as literally one of our own. And this is exactly what Aunt Eunice did with Carlos. She came filled with joy, filled with life, filled with optimism, not to scare him or terrorize him like sometimes we see in horror movies, but rather to embrace him with contentment, relief, joy, and compassion. How beautiful is that? That is the message that our Creator wants to send to all of us. One, nothing in nature is destroyed forever. Two, life goes on in both realms of life. Three, we have loving connections and a loving network that goes beyond what the eyes can see. and we are surrounded by love, even when we least expect it, even when we are experiencing a new phase in our lives, even when we may be experiencing fear, because God is our Father, as Jesus the Master has shown us. And as a loving Father, He provides to us abundant love. And one of the ways in which He provides us with abundant love is through our undying ties with spirits who most of the time have loved us for many, many centuries. And what the reincarnations we go through do is just strengthen those ties of love. The Gospel according to Spiritism has a passage exactly on that. Spiritual ties versus material ties. Sometimes they go together. Our physical family, material family, is the same as our spiritual family. Sometimes not quite. But either way, we always have loved ones in both realms of life. So doesn't it feel fantastic, Mark, to know that we are loved beyond words and beyond this world?
This is, and it's so beautiful, the gift that Carlos gives to his brother through these stories. It's so touching to know that this love continues on, and how much these two brothers must love each other. You know, if you hear it in the messages, you hear it in the letters. And this is a relationship that's been growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, probably for, centuries. And it's such a beautiful story to hear a communication coming from the spirit world into right to the brother of this wonderful spirit. And we're seeing this. Not all of us are blessed with these communications, but this might just speak to the immense love that these two have for each other. Just to kind of add to what you were saying about how our reincarnations are ways of connecting again to people, in much the same way that going back to the spirit realm may also be in some ways a way of connecting again to people, right? And so we're constantly having these lessons and these opportunities for spiritual growth all the time, all around us. I think the important thing to realize, and it's been said in many times in many readings from the spirits that I've read, is that we need to take advantage of every opportunity we have, and this reincarnation is a special gift. So we should always be thinking about how we can take advantage of that in our lives. But it's also important to realize that that spirits in the spirit realm can continue to communicate and influence us in our own lives today. And so this message is also a message of hope, that those whom we may have lost, those who we may not have any contact with, are still in connection with us.
And it's beautiful to know, Mark, that this connection can go across dimensions. And we don't really have to be like Chico Xavier, the charitable, loving Brazilian medium, to feel that that connection is real. Because oftentimes when we have a loved one who has departed, who has left their physical body behind, like Carlos mentions, when we think of them out of the blues and we start remembering the loving moments and experiences we shared, and that brings a smile and a tear to our eyes, that is precisely the moments when they are right there with us. And often, like the spirit author Andre Lewis reports in his many books, often when our physical body goes to sleep, we are many times blessed with the opportunity to have face-to-face meetings with those who have departed to the spiritual realm. So it's beautiful to know that even if we are not gifted with physical letters, like the ones that Carlos was able to write through Chico Xavier, we are still, of course, blessed with the same kind of spring or fountain of love. Because if we don't have the letters, we have the encounters in place of it, or we have the intuitive communication in place of it, or we have the embraces that our loved ones give us on a daily basis sometimes that we can feel within the depths of our hearts. So it's beautiful to know that we are never alone and that we are always loved. So if we ever harbor any doubt as to whether or not we are loved, whether or not someone cares, whether or not we are completely alone in the world, now we know that that doubt doesn't deserve any space in our hearts, because as Carlos kindly shows us, nobody really dies. Nobody really ends, so to speak. That life goes on, and because life goes on, our ties of love become stronger and stronger and stronger and embrace us no matter the circumstance. So even when we may see ourselves alone from a physical perspective, we can now, through Carlos and Dirceo's relationship, be certain that we are never alone from a spiritual perspective. So let us celebrate the companionship of those who love us unconditionally and who oftentimes embrace us in their kindness, compassion, and incredible presence, even from the other side of life. Let us celebrate and cherish this never-ending connections with a beautiful prayer.
Thank you, good spirits, for once again reminding us of how connected we are to the spirit realm, and how in our daily lives spirits can influence us and are connected with us and are part of our lives every day. Thank you so much for the gift of the good spirits who come and communicate with us. Thank you so much for the beautiful gift of Chico Xavier. And thank you so much for all the beautiful gifts of love that come from all of the beautiful people who are taking the advantage and learning from all the lessons that we've learned from the good spirits, who are living with a life that Jesus has recommended that all of us live, and are putting that in action. Because it is through the life of Jesus that we all can become better people and better connected to the loving energy which lies within the spiritual realm. So be it.
So be it, and let us feel the embrace from this living light and living presences who are constantly around us. And let us celebrate each day as a gift. And until we meet again, we wish you many, many, many blessings today and always.
This has been Kardec Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.